Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the state of the industry around the world during the pandemic and post. We have all experienced varying major difficulties in the initial lockdown. And while we're sad that we have not been able to be together in Amsterdam this year, many today are pleasantly surprised how sales fared in all of this. Provisional estimates put the loss of revenue during the initial lockdown period at close to 30%. With hire and charter-related sales particularly badly hit by restrictions on international travel. Since June, most regions report significant increase in both new and pre-owned boat sales as interest in boating climbs to an all-time high. Many new consumers have entered the market, with sales for first-time buyers substantially up compared to 2019. I'd like to get us started by just having a look at a couple of factors and statistics from around different parts of the world. To start, in the US and Canada, the level of demand for boats has been so high that sales are expected to hit a 13-year high this year. For the period January to August 2020, boat sales were up 8% compared to 2019, with year-to-date sales growth reaching double digits across almost every major market segment. Both Canada and the US have seen an outstanding increase in first-time boat buyers and participants. In Italy, Confindustria Nautica estimates the lockdown disruptions to boating businesses initially resulted in loss of income equivalent to 13% of industry turnover. But successful lobbying allowed exporting shipyards to reopen at the end of April. Domestic demand for recreational boating products has been high, with reports to excellent sales of pre-owned boats and an upsurge in charter activity, while the Italian export brands have also profited from the surge in demand across the global markets. In Germany, they're seeing a spike in demand for products, with boats and life jackets sold out and water sports retailers shattering historic sales records. In the Netherlands, since restrictions were lifted across the country, HKBIA has seen strong sales in the small boat market, while sales of imported brands have risen 36% in the 6 months. Croatia, while the cruising destinations in the north, within driving distance of Europe's alpine states, have performed well, the southern Adriatic destinations requiring international flights saw heavily reduced sales. Overall, CBIA estimates that the fall in bookings between March and September will contribute to a 35% drop in the industry turnover. And in Hong Kong, the Industry Association reports the trade has recovered to 2019 levels, with dealerships noticing a significant number of first-time buyers entering the market. But the caution is that it's unsustainable, and in the long term, with demand expected to drop off sharply once international travel resumes and public financial assistance is removed. Now, I'd like to turn it over to the panels. Before I do that, I'd like to introduce our distinguished panel. Lawrence Chow is the chairman of the Hong Kong Boating Industry Association and the Asia representative for the ICOMIA Executive Committee. Lawrence currently oversees general operations of China Pacific Marine, a Hong Kong dealership. Andrea Frabetti joined Sunseeker as Chief Technical Officer in January 2019 before being promoted to Chief Executive Officer in June 2019. Andrea has over 25 years of marine industry experience, having held various roles across key brands in the yachting world. His skills and passion for innovation have fed into new product development and differentiation in design across copious projects during his career. Frank Hugelmeyer is president of the National Marine Manufacturers Association. He has more than 30 years of experience in the sporting goods, fitness, and outdoor recreation sectors, along with an extensive background in retail, manufacturing, brand development, public policy, and trade association management. Welcome, gentlemen. And I maybe turn it over to Frank first, and we'll have an open discussion. I'd like to pose the first question for us to consider. Where is the market going? What do you anticipate for 2021 and beyond? Frank, why don't you start us off?
Thanks, Sara. Well, this year has been unprecedented and disruptive, and yet we've been one of the industries that have really benefited when we look at how consumers have been shifting and really driving our industry. This past year in the U.S., we're looking at 279,000 279,000 new boats being built right now by this time, and over 300,000 by the end of the year. And that's just from May through September, we've seen a 21% increase in sales over 2019. So we're on track to have the largest growth as an industry this year since before the Great Recession. That being said, we've got a lot of challenges within the industry, and I know we're going to talk about these on the panel. But we started with a significant impact earlier in the year from the shutdowns. First, you had the shutdowns in China. That created a supply chain disruption that really reverberated into the States when we started to see the shutdowns in that March and April timeframe. And we are so fortunate as an industry, particularly in the US, to have gotten through our major winter selling season. That really allowed us to enter into the crisis with a strong order book. We had most of our major and most successful and largest boat shows were operating in 2020. And then from March on, that's when the shutdowns really began in the States. And so the order book was strong going in, and that allowed us to get through that 2 to 3 month window of shutdowns. And then the consumer started to head our way. And that was largely really driven by, in my mind, the lack of competition that we had within the space. I think we've had a unique situation play out this year where we've seen so many new boat buyers coming towards the industry, so many new consumers coming towards us. And that's because they didn't have competition for their time and mind share. We didn't. You didn't have cruises, you didn't have international travel. Gone were the competition from maybe an amusement park or other destinations. Folks were stuck at home in a quarantine situation online, wondering what they were going to do, and the outdoors and the water was open. And that allowed us to really see this wave and rejuvenation of the lifestyle in the United States that we're still seeing today. And honestly, I expect it to continue far into next year and maybe even longer. The question is, will this be a long-term trend? That's something that we're right now spending a lot of time analyzing. But there's no question that we've learned a lot about what drives the industry, and we've learned a lot about what competes against the industry that I think is going to serve us well going forward. And our market at the moment in the US is very robust. Our biggest challenge is we have very little retail inventory at this point. I spoke to one manufacturer who normally has thousands of units actually out in inventory around retail around the country at this time of year. And he said he has 75 units. So there's a big gap in the United States between a really dramatic retail reduction. There's very little inventory at retail and in the dealers, which means we're going to have a very strong order book going forward, very positive, as long as we don't have the supply chain disruptions that really have hampered us throughout this year. We're 10% up on retail. We're about 20% down in the US right now in terms of wholesale.
Andrea, would you like to provide some comments?
We've been very, very worried at the very beginning of the pandemic, coming back to March 2020. But in reality, the market for Sunseeker, and Sunseeker International means yacht starting from 55 feet up to 50 meters. On that segment, at the very beginning, we've been, as I said, we've been worried because nobody knows about the future. And so the market in March was not important, but then the things went better than expected. During the summertime and also during the spring, late spring, summertime and fall, we have a very good retail sale trend. I think that this year, the problem was to deliver the boat on time because the lockdown in UK was longer compared to Italy, for example. And so we've been we have reduced the number of boats manufactured only because the pandemic locked down the company and the worker, of course. But then, as soon as we've been able to restart in June, we have delivered a lot of boats, and today we are running to deliver all the boats required. Also, in the meantime, our dealer stock decreased significantly. I would say that it's almost close to zero now. And everything is, we are in the situation this year now, November 2020, better than November 2019 before COVID. And so, okay, we are happy. Nobody knows about the future, of course. We hope that this trend will go on. The observation about the effect of the pandemic on the nautical industry for 2020 is positive. It looks like the people feel more safe boating compared to other kind of vacation that unfortunately in many countries anyway was quite forbidden. Any other, hotels as a trouble, unfortunately, and the traveling as a trouble. But I would say that 90% of the yacht owner this year used their boat. They've been on boat. That is not so common. Sometimes the number of people that, okay, they own a boat, but they really use a boat is less than 90%. Sometimes it's 70, 80% and something like that. And for many reasons, it looks like the perfect environment to spend your leisure time on yachting. This is the outcomes, what we understood about this pandemic in 2020.
Lawrence, some comments from Asia?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think when we were first hit in March, I think that was the worst time. We also did a survey at that time, and a lot of us were really worried about the situation, especially with supply chains and not knowing what the future would be like. But surprisingly, when the situation got a little better in Hong Kong and also around the rest of Asia, the whole market picked back up. And I think we could definitely see how our market is heavily affected by, like, one, the financial markets, the change in the behavior, two, the change in behavior of people, and also the travel restrictions. So all three of these kind of helped shape how our market has grown throughout this year. For example, the financial markets, a lot of our clients surprisingly made a lot of money. And I think that's why a lot of people have been looking into boating as one of the escapes. So they need to first have the means to go. And with the financial markets picked up, that helped already. And then, as what Frank and Andrea said, the change in behavior is really important too. People have looked into other alternatives. So instead of only going and longing to go to travel, they've been looking at other local activities within our own regions, exploring what we have around us, our water, as well as spending time with their family. So I think this is one, there's been a major shift in the behavior since COVID. And also with travel restrictions happening, people have honestly just looked at what they can do within our own region. When we talk about the markets, how it's picked up, I think our industry really follows the market. At first, we were very worried about it because the markets fell, but now that with markets being at an all-time high, the confidence in the people is really affected in our industry as well. And also, I think one thing we do look at, especially within Asia, is how we can adapt to this in the future. So with new travel bubbles happening. So for example, between Hong Kong and Hong Kong and Singapore, there will be a new travel bubble that will happen next week onwards. So with this kind of travel, opportunities will begin to open up, especially between businesses, between the grain industry, between Singapore and Hong Kong. That'll create more of a buzz. But on the flip side, that could also create more difficulties for us in the way that there's more options for people to do other things other than being in Hong Kong or in their own regions.
Okay, well, why
so
don't
I
we
think
get
mostly, yeah. Sorry, no, that's fine.
Okay, I thought maybe we should
ahead.
get into it a little bit more detail on, what are the new demands for the industry and what are the opportunities? Maybe Lawrence, why don't you start?
Yeah.
Tap into that a bit deeper.
I think when it comes to like the demands, we've already been pushing ourselves. The industry has already been pushing ourselves towards the digital age. So a lot of videos as well as other kind of marketing tools that we look at through the internet. But I think with COVID happening, it's really changed this, and there is more of a trend in people putting more resources into digital marketing, as well as now that boat shows are not possible to be held in most places. Virtual boat shows have become a real tool in bridging this gap. So I think this is one of the trends that we'll definitely see in the future.
Yeah, I agree with Lawrence that there will be an acceleration to the digital, and there certainly was this year. And I think that what we'll see is hybrid type of marketing going forward. What we're looking at, I think we have to be very careful to assume right now that everyone's effective at digital marketing, because we have not had competition. And everyone looks good this year. Everyone in the entire marine industry can get through the noise because the consumer is making a choice of, hey, how do I reprioritize my time, spend family time? And there's only a handful of activities that you can do that with. And outdoor recreation, and particularly recreational boating, is one of the safest, best ways to socially distance in a pandemic. So we've been very fortunate in terms of how we've been positioned as a collective industry, and all of outdoor recreation, certainly in the United States, and I assume this is true across the world, is seeing growth. We're seeing it in the RV industry. We're seeing it grow. We're seeing growth in outdoor recreation and all outdoor activities. People are going to our public lands and waters in droves right now, and that trend is, when we think about it from an opportunity, is it a trend that we can make stick? Because if we can make that stick, we can move people up the good, better, best ladder, and they can stay within the journey. The research that we've seen in the United States is that if someone gets into an outdoor lifestyle between the ages of 5 to 18, they're likely to stay in that lifestyle for the rest of their lives. And second, they're about to go on a journey of a wide variety. 8 out of 10 will go on a journey of a wide variety of different activities. So this movement into outdoor recreation in the United States, particularly, and across North America, means that those people who bike are going to try boating. People who ski are going to want to try boating. People who stand up paddle want to try boating. What we're going to see is this growth that's occurred is going to go across a journey of a variety of different activities that are going to benefit us for probably the next decade. This is very exciting. And the question of how the industry takes advantage of that opportunity, I think, is at the core of our entire market globally. In the US, what we're planning to do is really coordinate around our Discover Boating campaign to not only bring in more and more and invite more and more people into the lifestyle, then drive them into a path to purchase. And that we're looking at how do we connect digitally to our consumers and digitally to our boat shows so that we can make that seamless. We see a big opportunity in that from an NMA standpoint.
Andrea? Good luck.
So, on the perspective of a shipyard like Sunseeker International, it's very important that we come back to travel, we come back to life, I say. I don't see any advantage to going on with this pandemic. We have a lot of problem because anyway, we build boat in UK, in Poole. Then we have a showcase where we display in a marina, private by Sunseeker. And so we display the boat there, but unfortunately, our customer that comes from United States, comes from Germany, comes from Italy and other countries, they can't come to visit the boat. They can't come to visit the construction, to see the progress in construction. And this is a problem. A long-term, medium-term is a problem because anyway, to purchase a yacht is an experience that you like to live, you touch, to feel, to stay together. As I said, at the shipyard, in the showcase, talking to the worker in case, or to the architects to configure your boat, to test the boat and everything. And now we are in a situation in which everything is extremely difficult. Also, the delivery of the boat to the final customer is a problem because our crew can't travel. It's difficult to service the boat because we can't service the boat. And it will be more difficult. You see on my background, the 2020 Düsseldorf boat show. It's an happening where a lot of people like to be there to enjoy anyway, to purchase yachts. And so we hope we miss Cannes Boat Show, we miss Monte Carlo show and many other. We have a very good success in Genoa Boat Show because it was the only one. And so this is the demonstration that anyway, the travel restriction in the medium term is not positive for the industry. Difficulties, as I said, and then I don't see any better thing in the future if this pandemic going on. And so we are hoping very well that everything will be over soon.
Sara, I think Andrea is bringing up an important point because this year, as we go into 2021, unlike last year where we got through the early selling season and had a strong order book across the globe really before the shutdowns hit, we are not necessarily going to have that same framework and environment and pre-order book come out of shows this year, which goes to Lawrence's point that there's going to have to be digital solutions. There's going to have to be a strong digital push and a marketing push by the industry to and some creativity and innovation to reach the consumer and serve the customer. We, obviously NMA has announced that it's not going to be doing 8 shows within the winter timeframe in January and February, and that includes the Miami International Boat Show, where a large portion of our members' sales and manufacturer sales are driven, and they come out of that show. They're not going to have that for the first time. Now, I have had several of the members go, if there is ever a year that you don't have Miami International Boat Show, it's this year, because our order book is so strong and retail inventory is so low that we see a guarantee of a strong, at least manufacturing growth through the next 6 months just to restock retail in the United States. But we still need to have the consumer pull. And if we're in increasing lockdowns, which we likely will be in the United States, I think we're pretty certain to see the consumer do what it did this year, which is go online in droves. And we saw a lot of consumer activity online. We saw 100% growth really across virtually all of our digital platforms. We saw significant growth in terms of demographics in women and in younger and more diverse communities. These are all positive trends and great opportunities. They're all being driven digitally. The question right now is, when will we be coming out of the pandemic and being able to come back together? And I agree with Andrea. I think the sooner we can do that, and I think the industry is excited to do that. Everyone right now is done with the Zoom meetings and really wants to get back together as a community. And once we do it, I think we're going to see an incredible celebration and energy coming out of the industry, because everyone's already ready for it. I know I am.
No, I totally agree. Like, I think everyone is kind of maybe like tired of Zoom or these kind of meetings, and that's probably what's pushing them to go out on the water on the flip side. And I think, as you said, like, I think digital has played a big part in this. And nowadays, actually, a lot of our own clients, they know the boat more than we do as a dealer, because they've done all the research online and there's so much information out there. And I think the final touch is what Andrea said, is to get on a boat, to see what and experience what it's like in there. And that's the final part that really seals the deal for a lot of the first-time boat buyers. And we've seen a lot of new boat buyers now that have just thought or just interested in joining boating as well. So yeah, it's a great.
Need to build on that. Let's talk a little bit about boat shows. If boat shows are done, there's no boat shows 2021. How do we feel about the future of boat shows? Do we think everything's just going to come back right back the way it was in 2022, or are we seeing some threats for consumers looking at it a different way? What are your thoughts on that?
I'll jump in on that. I am bullish on the future of boat shows, actually. I think that we will have consolidation of boat shows. I think boat shows that have not shown a good return on investment will not do well going forward. I think that the boat shows, though, play such an important role, like Andrea said, to excite the consumer about the lifestyle. I think we're going to see it go more digital, like Lauren said, and I think we're going to see it become more experiential, like Andrea said. And I think that's the future of boat shows. I think boat shows also have a critical strategic role to play going forward, and that is when right now we don't. I think it's important to stress this point over and over again. We do not have competition right now for our spending and time and dollars. That competition is going to come back, and it's going to come back in an aggressive way. So when you think about Disney trying to get people to come back to their amusement parks, when you think about the cruise ships and the big companies that run the cruise lines, and when you think about adventure travel and destination travel, what we've learned is that's the competition to the recreational boating industry, at least in the United States. And they're going to come back aggressively to regain their lost market share. And our goal now in the US is to actually defend our market share gains and actually build on those. So the way we're planning to do that in the United States is by unifying our Discover Boating brand with all of our boat shows and really getting loud and staying loud, because the competition for the time and mind share is going to come back in spades. There are no football games. There are no sports leagues. You're not going to movie theaters. You're not, literally all of the competition for time and dollars is being focused to outdoor recreation right now. And the question is how boat shows are going to play such a critical role in us being able to compete against a noisy and crowded field in 2022 and really at the end of 2021.
In my perspective, I'm quite sure that next year the boat show will go on. I'm sure that, unfortunately, Miami show will not go on, and most likely, unfortunately, Düsseldorf not. But I think that later in the spring and summer, I'm sure that the boat show will go on. What I can say, what I can underline is that everybody realized how much is important a boat show. Recently, in the last couple of years, there was just some rumors about shipyards that prefer to organize private events versus boat shows to save money, something like that. I think that this 2020, if we talk about boat shows, has teach to everybody, and everybody understood that the importance of boat show. Every shipyard miss really the boat shows for many reasons. But this is the reality. Cannes Boat Show was missed by all the shipyard, all the events, the award, everything. It's missed to maintain the attraction to clientele and to be able to develop design and expectation by customer and everything. And so I think that one of the outcomes of this 2020 is the boat show will have a longer life in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think boat shows are so important for our industry. In a way, it's like the life and the heart of our industry, and it's where all sectors of our industry gather together and exchange ideas, where we can have all sectors, from like the boat dealers and manufacturers all the way to the suppliers that supply the life safety equipment. It's where we can all group up together and share the latest advances and celebrate our industry. So by having a boat show, we really bring in all the first-time boat buyers, all the people that are interested in getting into boating. And it's only through these events where we can all align ourselves as an industry and learn about what's at the forefront of an industry and how we can even propel it and grow boating within our own industry. And there is no substitute. And I think that, as you said, I think maybe the boat shows will happen between the waves of COVID. And maybe they might be a little smaller and more adaptive to how it can be postponed or adapt to the overall situation. But I think that, as you said, like in 2021, we will see some more boat shows. And in 2022, I think it'll happen. And a lot more people will be willing to go out because everyone's tired of sticking at home and with no other options. And by then, who knows, we might have the vaccine, and then we'll have other travel bubbles, which will allow people to travel to these boat shows. So we'll have the infrastructure as well as the enthusiasm from the people to let boat shows live on.
Yeah, and we're in the experience business. Boat show, the boating, recreational boating is one of the great experiences to have as from a meaningful standpoint with families and friends. And there's no better place for us to really show that experience than at and around the shows. And I think it would be a mistake for us to assume that everyone wants just a digital experience in their life. And I think we're part of living a full and well-lived life. That's what we provide our customers. And I think it's important for us to remember that gets embodied at boat shows in a way that we cannot do ever, really can't ever get copied on the virtual plane. We're about human.
It's been a great conversation. Maybe, I don't know if you want to, before we wrap it up and turn it over to Q&A session for the audience, if there's any, concluding or final thoughts you'd like to share.
I'll chime in a little bit. I think, again, I cannot stress enough about how the consumer behavior is driving the change right now. And we're seeing, at least in the US, where 95% of the boats are 27 foot or below, but every category is going up strong right now. And we have a unique opportunity, really a gift in the industry, to grow our market for the long term, beyond just a 1 or 2 year time frame, but for the next decade, by really recognizing what has transpired and what these shifts are. So an example, in America right now, we're seeing people move out of the cities because of the quarantine. One of the big trends is folks are no longer stuck in wherever they live. They can choose where they live and they can work. And the remote aspect of COVID has shown that a lot more of the citizenry can go wherever they want. So they choose quality of life and outdoor recreation as a choice. We're seeing huge increases in people moving towards coasts. We're seeing huge increases in people moving towards the mountains, buying places sight unseen because mortgage rates are so low around the country, and borrowing dollars is so cheap. And that includes actually financing toys that go with that destination. So someone who moves to a coast is inevitably going to buy the toys that go with living on the coast, and that means boats. So I think we're seeing a sustained long-term trend, and it's in our best interest collectively as an industry to really take advantage of that and extend it as far as we can, because we will see the competition return, and we need to be ready for that.
That's true. I think, as you said, Frank, you said that the behaviors have changed, and I think our priorities have definitely changed as well. I think we are looking for healthier lifestyles, and as you said, people are looking to move out of the cities maybe because it's not necessary anymore. If you have to work, you can probably work from home as well. And it's this shift that has really helped our industry. And I think we have to think about how we can capture this. Maybe it's through the boat shows and through working digitally as well, to keep reminding people that there is this industry. So when the competition does come in, we are ready for it. Because as you said, I totally agree. We have no competition right now. Everything is closed. And the healthiest alternative is to go out on the water. And the boats are a means to do that. Yes, there is hiking or taking your RVs out, but that's all our competition basically right now. So yeah, I think we just have to think about our steps ahead. Yeah.
Andrea, any thoughts? Concluding thoughts?
No, I mean, I agree with everything I have listened, and yes, I mean, as I said, we've been lucky to go on with the industry. Now the challenge is to come back to life very soon and to deliver the experience to our customer. That is not easy because, for example, in production, we applied the social distancing, and we changed completely the way in which our worker works on the boat. We changed completely many things, many procedures also in service and after sale. And part of those procedures will become part of the normal way to operate, because anyway, there is a kind of positive in the procedure for social distancing that we applied in production. But anyway, until the day in which the pandemic is will come to an end, every day we hope that we have no spread in contagion in the company, because this could create another break in production. And so, yes, now it's a strong challenge, and very soon we hope that the pandemic will go away to be able to come back to life and to deliver the dreams to our customer.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. This has been a wonderful discussion. I really appreciate your insight, and I'd like to now turn it over to a Q&A session from our audience.